focuses on nothing but Jesus. And not only is it my favorite time of the year because I am a Jesus freak, meaning that I love to read and study and talk about, and I try to emulate the way Jesus lived his life. Today is the day we hear the story one more time. So if you will, turn to me to the Gospel of Luke, the 24th chapter, or follow along on the board as we hear once again what this day is all about. On the first day of the week, early in the morning, the woman took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. When they entered it, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. And while they were wondering about this, suddenly two men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee? Remember he told you the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." And then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11, and to all the others. There was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them, who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe the women, because their words seemed to them like nonsense. So Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen laying by themselves, and he went away wondering to himself what had happened. What just happened? And that is what Peter is asking on many different levels here. And I believe that many of us, you and I, are asking the exact same thing. Because each of us have been in a season or a period of time in our life when in a sober moment we stop and we look around and we say, "What just happened?" And most of the time, when that happens to us, it's usually because of bad news, not good news. You see, we live in a society today where we are programmed for bad news. We've been programmed to always expect the worst. We expect people to lose their jobs. We expect relationships to end in divorce. We expect the test results to be cancerous. We expect food and gas prices to go out the roof. And when we begin to believe, when the phone rings, that we will pick it up, we will hear bad news. When the phone rings for some of us, there's a pain inside of us knowing that it's going to be painful news. Why? Because that's just how things in our life have programmed us to believe. You see, Jesus, if you read back, Jesus told the women, Jesus told the disciples, Jesus told the followers, Jesus told everyone who would listen to him that he would be arrested, that he would be killed in front of everyone to witness, and that he would be buried, and that after 3 days he would be risen from the dead. He told everybody that would listen to this over and over and over. And how could these women not believe what they were seeing? How could these followers of Jesus not believe him? I mean, these were his closest friends. I mean, had Jesus ever misled them before? No, he hadn't. Had Jesus made these wild prophetic predictions about his death and looked like a crazy man in front of them? No, he hasn't. Of course not. So why didn't anyone believe the words of Jesus Christ before look at this story again, especially from the Easter perspective, we look over the fact that, look, it was not safe for the followers of Jesus. At that moment in time, they would have been arrested, convicted, and publicly assassinated. Look, if the government would do that to an innocent man like Jesus, imagine what they would do with his followers that were spreading around news that he wasn't dead and still alive. They would do the exact same thing. And what we've got to realize up until that moment, more importantly, the words of Jesus Christ, just hope. They're just hope. Up until that moment, everything Jesus said was just hopeful words. But now when they look into the tomb, when they see that the tomb was empty, when they see the garments that he was laid in, that changes everything. Hope becomes a new reality. It's not just hope anymore. It's not just promises anymore. When that tomb is empty, a new reality begins. And we need to understand that this is not just a story about a loving God who resurrects his Son. I mean, I don't mean to downplay the love and power here. I don't. But you give me anyone that has felt the unbearable pain of death, especially losing a child. Give me anyone who would not, if they had the power, use it to bring them back to life. Every single one of us would. And you see, Jesus didn't die just so we could celebrate the fact that he died and was resurrected. The Bible states, as I shared with the children, the Bible states over and over again that Jesus was the firstborn of many. That Jesus was resurrected so you and I can be resurrected. And that's a big, huge statement, that the resurrection is for everyone. That's a huge statement that this planet Earth we live on here and now is not our final destination. And if you were wondering, yes, I just quoted Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. There was my first one. It takes it from hope. It takes it from where I hope there is something out there after I die to I know there is something out there more. I know God, who created this planet Earth, also has another kingdom for us to rise to if we choose to follow Jesus, the one who was resurrected first. And when we read and study the life of Jesus, we can remember, like I do, and remember I'm a Jesus freak. But if you actually study the life of Jesus, you find that Jesus sets a very, very high standard. Jesus sets a very high standard by which to live and to follow him. Here's the truth. Here's the truth that we need to hear loud and clear that took me a long time in my life to realize. That God doesn't need, God doesn't want, or God doesn't expect you to be Jesus. Let that sink in. God doesn't want, need, or expect you to be Jesus. You see, the standard Jesus sets for us to live our life by is unreachable. It's unattainable. And we will always fall short. You see, we will always mess things up. We will in this life make mistakes. And it doesn't make us bad people. It makes us human. And when we fall short, God doesn't condemn us. God's grace grows deeper for us when we fail. God's forgiveness grows greater when we fail. God's love for us is as it was before we messed up. And God says, look, you messed up. But you are still my beautiful, my unique, my creation, in which I love so much that I made a tomb empty. And when we begin to realize that God doesn't condemn us, when we can honestly begin to internalize that, we begin to look at our lives and we begin to see areas in which we feel we need to shift or make changes in a little bit. We will see things in our life that we need to do, or we'll see things in our life that we need to stop doing that we were doing before, only to make us look a little bit more like Jesus. We're not going to be Jesus, but look a little bit, assimilate our life a little bit more like Jesus. And when we have a desire and a courage to change some things in our life, to make it more assimilate to Jesus, it's not condemnation. It's making us that change. What's making us that change is a conviction. It's looking at areas in my life and like, I could use a little help here. I could use a little work in this area. And I want to say, if you are here this morning and someone during your life has tried to condemn you, whether it was a coach, a teacher, a parent, someone in a faith community, if anyone in your life is trying to condemn you, told you that you were a bad person, and that God was going to punish you, or that God didn't love you, or that you were unlovable, I want you to hear me loud and clear when I say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They were wrong. They were so misguided. They could not have missed the mark if they were aiming in the wrong direction. And maybe their intentions were good, but they were wrong. And I have learned in my life that for me and probably most of us, that we are always much harder on ourselves than God is on us. You see, for everyone who walks planet Earth that's not happy, there's Phil again, that back to you. There will always be time for redemption. And redemption just means that we make things right, that we messed up. And there will always be room for improvement for each and every one of us. And if you have not lived a perfect life just like Jesus, if you have done things that are not pleasing to God, guess what? You are just like me and every single one of us here this morning. And if you look in the mirror and do not like what you see, hear me. You are loved by God. You are loved so much that His Son died for you. He was dead but rose again, and Christ's living body is not in a tomb, but is manifested in a local faith community. So we, as a community, can walk through this life here on planet Earth together, to be there for one another, to hold each other's hands when it hurts, to give each other a shoulder to cry on, to lead in strength, to help you get back on your feet when you've been knocked down. That's what's happening here. God says, look, I understand how difficult life is there. But you don't have to navigate it alone. I am there. Other believers and followers are there. You are never alone. And when you begin to believe that, when you realize the reality that you will never live up to the standards set by Jesus, and if you have the courage to begin to change things in your life will begin to transform. Now, I got to call TV timeout because I want you to hear loud and clear what I'm not saying. I am not saying just because Jesus' expectations are so high and that they can never be met, that we should just stop trying. No. What I'm saying is when we begin to align our life to emulate the way Jesus treated others and loved and gave mercy and forgiveness, when we begin to emulate Jesus, our perspective on our life and the world around us will begin to change. Our focus will begin to change on things. We will begin to focus on things that really matter in this life, like relationships and family and service and others. And we will remember the words of Jesus. We will draw strength and know that He and others are with us. When we get to that place, when we cannot believe what just happened. And that transformation begins to happen. I've got to be honest with you. When you begin to tell people how God has begun to walk with you, and when you begin to turn things around in your life, when you begin to bring peace and joy and happiness into your life, don't forget, we live in a world that is programmed for bad news. Don't forget that there will be people who will not believe you. There will be people who will think that you are fake. There will be people that think it's just a Jesus phase you're going through. There will be people that will say, oh, just give them time. You'll see their true colors. But a changed life is undebatable. I have said that over and over and over again. A changed life is undebatable. It's undeniable. Just like Peter, they will look and see for themselves. It's kind of like that one kid. You know the one I'm talking about? It's that one kid on the playground. I mean, there's one in every school, every age, every generation. It's that one kid. When all the children, no matter what the age, find a dead bird or a dead animal on the ground. And everyone in the class is standing around and looking and peeking and watching. And it's probably for some of the kids, and maybe that was you. Remember, that's the first dead thing you've seen in your life. And it's like that one kid. Maybe it was me, I don't know. But it's that one kid that has to get a stick and poke it. You know what I'm talking about? Some of you are like, yeah, that was me. Had to poke it to see if it's dead. And there are adults that still do that. And it's not with birds, but it's to people who are hurting. It's to people who are searching. They want to poke them. See if they're dead or not. And see, there are people like Peter everywhere. But we also know, if you know the rest of Peter's story, Peter has transformation in his own life. He goes from a scared follower to Jesus to truly being the rock that Jesus saw in him when they first met and changed his name. But the good news, the great news, the news that I need to hear today is that God wishes me to live without any guilt. That He desires me to live free of shame and to live a life free of fear of death, knowing that God gave us the ability to extend our existence throughout eternity, and that eternity begins now. That is what happened. We pray for them.